welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Bookmas, and today I'm going to be setting up my TBR card in preparation for 2026. I've had this TBR card for a couple of years and have never really used it for the sake of picking my books from it. I've kind of just used it as a bit of a dumping ground. So in 2026, I'm really going to intentionally use this first and foremost when picking out my monthly TBRs. So to do that, I'm also going to then stack it with books that are going to hopefully be my priorities in 2026. Now, the first load of books you have already seen, you will have seen in two different videos, and they are my 26 in 2026. So yeah, I thought I would shovel the books on and just kind of let you guys know what is on my priority TBR, we'll say, for 2026. We have my 2026, which include my 12 self-destruct books, but then other than that, I have basically a bunch of series that I want to continue, as well as a bunch of my oldest books that are going to be going on there. And then every month when I make my TBRs, this will be the place that I come to first for picking out those books. So first up, let's start with the 26 in 2026. So I'll go through these ones pretty quick. We have The Sun in the Void, The Book That Wouldn't Burn, Silver in the Bone, Sing Me to Sleep, Murder Road, Some Desperate Glory, The Wren in the Holy Library, Nectar of the Wicked, A Curse of Blood and Wolves, and there is a little gap there that I think I'm going to shove The Lord of the Rings Return of the King, because you can't really get two hardcovers like back to back like this on there, so I'm going to then face a bunch of them on their sides. So we have Inheritance, When the Moon Hatched, The First Unicorn Rider, and The Two Towers. So they all sit quite nicely up top. So then going into my second layer, I have a couple of small hardbacks, so Witch King and Lies We Sing to the Sea, and then three leftover hardcovers that are going to be sitting down. We've got Skander and the Spirit War, Skander and the Skeleton Curse, and Sunrise on the Reaping. So they can all sit there. And then my paperbacks, Paladin's Grace, Love at First Night, Gone Girl, Generation 1, War and Peace, The Well of Ascension, and finally The Magician's Apprentice. So that is my 26 and 26. It takes up near enough 2 whole shelves, so that is going to be a good little reminder to, you know, get to these books. So let's go on to adding the additional books. I'm going to start with a bunch of series that I want to carry on with. So we have Fireborn, Starling and the Cavern of Light. This is the third and final book in a middle grade fantasy series. Insurgents, book 2 in a YA dystopian series. Soul of the Sword, this is by Julie Kagawa, and this is a second book in a YA fantasy trilogy. Let's see if I can squeeze in. This is Keepers of the Lost City, Lodestar. This is book 5 in a middle grade fantasy series. Can it squeeze in there? We're not doing that one. Let's do, in that gap, Bridgerton. This is The Viscount Who Loved Me, book 2 in a romance Regency series. And he sits nicely in there. I could actually get a skinny one on the other side as well. Do I have another skinny one? Let's go for The Princess Swap. This is Snow White and the Dragon and Sleeping Beauty and the Seven Dwarfs. This is a fantasy middle grade. Nicely in the back. So now we're on the bottom row. Yeah, you can kind of briefly see that. You don't need to see it all in focus. So, Lodestar. Oblivion, this is the 5th and final book in a YA sci-fi dystopian fantasy series. I'm not quite sure the genre this falls in, but I have really enjoyed it, so I'm so excited to finally actually finish that series. Crooked Kingdom, the 2nd book in a duology in a universe, which is the 5th book. Yeah, most people know what this is. A Swarm of Swords, this is part 2, Blood and Gold. This is the second half of the 3rd book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, which is a fantasy, epic fantasy series. Obviously, again, most people know what Game of Thrones is. A Touch of Ruin by Scarlett St. Clair. This is the 2nd book in an adult romantasy series, maybe, or paranormal. I'm not actually quite sure. It's a kind of like maybe dark romance. It's a Haley and Persephone series, and there is magic involved, but it's like urban, maybe fantasy then? I'm not quite sure the genre, but it's an adult romance book. I didn't actually mind book 1. I quite enjoyed it, so I'm curious to see where it goes. Clockwork Prince, a 2nd book in a trilogy, a fantasy YA. Said that again, part of a huge, bigger universe. This is the, technically, I guess, this will be the 8th book that I've read in the series, because I did read the original 6 books from them all instruments first. I think you're all supposed to read those in 2 halves, and this in between. I didn't. I read them out of order. But yeah, I did really enjoy the first one in this trilogy, so I'm looking forward to carrying on with it. Just assume that actually for most of the books in the series is because otherwise I wouldn't bother carrying on with them. That's not 100% true. One of Us is next. This is a YA murder mystery-esque series, thriller, maybe. Yeah, I did actually quite enjoy the first one, but it kind of was a complete-ish story, like the mystery wrapped up, so I've had no like rush to have to get into the next one, but I will, because I did enjoy the first one. All in, this is technically the 3rd book in the series. I do own the 2nd book, but on Kindle, so this is going to sit in as a reminder. This again is a YA thrillery mystery series. I enjoyed the 1st book in the series well enough, not enough to want to buy the 2nd book, as I have the ebook and I got it for 99p, but I have the 3rd book sitting here to prompt me to remember that I have that ebook. The Housemaid's Secret, an adult thriller, recent purchase, recent read the first one in a trilogy, I believe this is as well. Yeah, looking forward again seeing where this goes because, again, the first story and from the first book did get wrapped up. So this is going to kind of be in a continuation, but not of the same story, but of the same characters. Oh, I will be able to squeeze my next one in, and that is The Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human. This is the third book in a romantasy series. I think somewhat satirical, or at least like comedic. They are quite smutty. They are quite like ludicrous in ways and kind of just like funny and outlandish. I quite enjoy them. I think they're quite fun. So yeah, and I love the artwork on the covers of them. So that kind of covers the next in series that I'm kind of prioritizing. And so the next books are all just books that I've had for a really long time. I've mentioned a couple of times that I want to start doing a kind of big series on my channel of vlogs where I like read from my backlist, which is books bought from 2023 and before. These are some books that are even older than that. I've had these ones since probably before 2020. So they're going on the TBR to really prompt me to remember them, to try and read them. So first up we have World War Z by Max Brooks. This is I think a standalone. I'm not quite sure, but it is a zombie dystopian book. Could fit a skinny one in, so let's try Clockwork Orange, a classic. I'm not sure genre other than classic, which isn't really a genre, but Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a adult, I think, sci-fi. Unearthly, I'm gonna say a YA fantasy, maybe paranormal romancy. I don't know. Some of these books I have no idea how they came into my possession, but I own them now, so I want to try reading them, and this is one of them. James and the Giant Peach. I'm sure I've read this at some point in my life, but not as an adult. My older sister used to read to me and my twin when we were younger because we couldn't read very well, but she could. So I imagine she probably read this to us because it's one of her faves, but I've never read it as an adult, so I do want to read it as a middle grade fantastical kind of whimsy story. Then I have Paper Towns by John Green, a YA contemporary romance story. I've only actually ever read Fault in Our Stars by John Green, and I really enjoyed it, so do want to carry on and read his other works. Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This is a fairy tale retelling. It's a standalone, and yeah, had it for ages, heard great things about Naomi Novik as a writer, but never read anything by her. Hidden Figures. I think this is actually kind of a non-fiction. This is inspired the movie Hidden Figures, which I loved, which is why I bought this and thought it would be a fictional novel, but I think it's kind of a non-fiction telling the story of these women because they did actually exist. I have no idea, but I need to read it at some point, so yeah, I own it now. But yeah, I really enjoyed the movie Hidden Figures. This one has been on many a TBR throughout my channel, and that is The Book Thief. I know I'm gonna like this. I just feel like I'm gonna love it. I just feel like it's gonna be heavy. This is a wartime novel, magical realism elements, but yeah, I think it's quite a heavy hitter. I did not realize in this pile I put a second Roald Dahl, and that is the BFG. When I was making this list, because I know Roald Dahl as a person wasn't necessarily the best, but I was kind of curious about where the money from his proceeds go, so I googled it because obviously he's dead. So actually I then found out that Netflix bought the Roald Dahl estate in like 2021. I think his family still get a portion of the royalties, as does a children's charity, which I like that. But then Netflix, yeah, which makes sense because Netflix had done, like, I know they're pumping out some Roald Dahl stuff, but I did not know Netflix now owned the Roald Dahl estate, but they do. But yeah, the BFG was an animated film, but when I was younger, it used to scare the shit out of me. The giant with the fingernail used to terrify me, to the point sometimes at night I would sit in where he couldn't look in my window and see me because I was so scared of him like looking in my window and poking me with his giant nail to steal my good dreams or whatever he did. I've never actually rewatched it as an adult. I should maybe do that. And I've never also watched a live action film, but it's a story I do remember really enjoying. So again, want to read it as an adult. Bitten by Kelly Armstrong. This was on October's TBR, didn't end up getting read. Do want to read it. Yeah, fantasy, paranormal romance, I think. I'm not sure if it's an adult, but yeah. Then I actually have an author that's already on here, and that is Suzanne Collins. This is Gregor the Overlander, and this is a middle grade series that she wrote before The Hunger Games, and it's a 5-book series. I own them all. I found them at a book sale for like £2 each. They are fantasy, urban fantasy. It's about a guy, I think he falls through a grate into like the tunnels underneath New York or something, and there's giant creatures live there. I don't know, but it's Suzanne Collins, so I want to give it a read. I'm sure I'll quite enjoy it as well. Then I have The Bad Tuesdays. This, again, is one that I've owned for ages. I think I found it secondhand at a charity shop. I think it's a middle grade or it's a YA. I don't even know if it is, like, has any kind of fantastical elements to it, or it's just about a group of, like, down on their luck kids, but I feel like they're going to have powers. That could be wrong though. For the final 2 books, they're 2 books that are actually the beginning of trilogies, and they're trilogies that my granddad had given to me. He'd read them and really enjoyed them and gave them to me, and then I never read them, so I do really want to put my effort in to read both of these series and see what they're like. The first one is The One Kingdom. I don't know if this is an adult book. It's a fantasy book. I think it's quite a high fantasy, but I'm not sure if it is an adult or a YA. But yeah, it's a very old, like, this is a mass market paperback. This book was originally published in like 2001, so it's a pretty old book. And then also The Deptford Mice. This is The Dark Portal, which again is book 1, and again this is quite an old book. I think this one is maybe more of a middle grade, and it's from '89, so this is quite an old fantasy series. I actually have a little bit of space I could technically fit something else on here. I'm just now looking around at my bookshelves. I'm like, do I grab something and just shove it on? Should I? Should I grab a classic? What have I got over here? Okay, so lastly, what will fit in that space quite nicely is Little Women. I have read the first half of this. For some reason in the UK, this was initially published as 2 novels, Little Women and Good Wives. I bought an edition of Little Women thinking it was the whole novel, and it wasn't. It was just the first part. So I have read the first part, but need to read the second part. So yeah, this will be slotting in because that fits in quite nicely in down here. And we have a little visitor. Hello, sir. So that is my book cart all set up nicely for me for 2026. These are the priority books, specifically these 2 shelves, but then yeah, really want to carry on with series, really want to get to my backlist, really want to get to them and do some video projects around them. So this, hopefully, I'm going to intend to use this book cart as a prompt to remember that these books exist and that I want to read them, because I have a very, very short-term memory. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you've read any books on here that you loved, let me know. I'd love to know. And I'll see you again in a couple of days for more Bookmas. Bye. Do you want to say goodbye? He doesn't usually like being held up. This is Orbit. You guys met him quite a while ago, and they are big boys now. Orbit still doesn't like to be held though, although he has recently gotten very affectionate, and like, look, now he's laying down on my arm. He didn't used to do this a couple of weeks ago, so he went into boredom for a weekend while me and my sister went away, and he's come back changed. Yeah, I love a little snuggle with the cat. But yeah, see you guys. Bye. I do need to move now though.